Hello. In this video we're going to learn the basics of transforming functions. Transforming functions means we take a original function and we change it somehow such that the resulting graph will look slightly different. In this case, in this video, we're only going to be sliding the graph. This is known as a translation. So we're going to be changing our function, in this case f of x equals x squared, and the original graph will look just like x squared, but it will be slid in a particular direction. So let's just take a look at this function. Let's sort of trace a few points. F of x equals x squared. This means that the input, which is the x value, is being squared. So if we take negative 2 squared is 4. If we take negative 3 squared, negative 3 quantity squared is 9. Likewise, if we take 1 squared is 1. 2 squared is 4, and 3 squared is 9. So we can make a table of these values on the next screen, and we're going to then do a function transformation. So let's make a table of values with this function. So we're going to have an x value on the left, and then our y value on the right. So given various inputs, we can say whether what the output is for various values of x. So let's start with negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, and 3. You could pick other values, but here's the basic range of values. And if x is negative 3, well, that squared was a positive 9. Negative 2 quantity squared was 4. Negative 1 squared is 1. 0 squared is 0, etc., etc. Now, on our original function, original graph, we never said y. We all know that the output of the function is the y value, but in this case, it actually said f of x. So when x is negative 3, f of x is 9. Okay? So let's change this function in a slight way. We're not going to change it. We're actually going to define a new function. And let's define a new function. In fact, I'll try to make it an orange color. Define a new function called g of x. And g of x, we're simply going to make f of x plus 1. Whatever value of f of x is, we want the g of x value to be 1. Now, another way of writing this would be to say that g of x equals, now what was f of x again? F of x is x squared. Another way of writing this is that g of x is x squared plus 1. We took the original function and we're going to add 1 to it. So let's make another table. This one will be for the g function. So on the left-hand side we have x, and on the right-hand side we're going to say what, oops, sorry about that. We're going to say what g of x will be. So for a given value of x, and again, we're going to have the same input values, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, and 3. For a given value of x, we're going to say what the g value is. And again, it's simply going to be this f of x value plus 1. So here the f of x was 9. When x was negative 3, the f of x was 9. And now the g function is saying we're just supposed to add 1 to that. So we're going to make that a 10. At x equals negative 2, f of x was 4. So g of x is going to be 4 plus 1. We just take the f of x value and we add 1 to it. And we continue on our table. We're just taking the f of x value and we're adding 1 to it. And 1 plus 1 is 2, 4 plus 1 is 5, 9 plus 1 is 10. Whatever the value was on the original function, we're just going to be adding 1 to it. So for example, we're going to be placing a point here. Instead of 0, it's going to be 1. Instead of at f of 1 is 1, we'll say f of 1 is 2. F of 2 was 4, but now we're just going to add 1 to it. And we're going to plot a series of points. F of negative 1 was 1. We're going to make it 2. F of negative 2 was 4. we're going to make it 5. So our graph is going to look something like this. And it's going to go shooting up here. All right, that's a very rough graph. But let's actually go back to the original function, and we'll see how this will be transformed. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a g function. We're going to say that g of x is x squared plus 1. Let's move this slider out of the way, and let's see how it looks. Yes, it turns out that g of x does look exactly like f of x, although it is translated 1 unit in the positive direction. So, in summary, we can say that when we have a function, a new function, we'll call it the g of x function. If that function was defined as taking another function and simply adding 1 to it, we really are just going to translate the original function upwards 1 unit. So this plus 1 means we translate f of x up 1 unit. And it doesn't have to be a plus 1, it could be a plus 5, it could be a plus 0.3. We will, no matter what we add to the original function, we're going to translate up that same number of units. You can also generalize by saying if we were to subtract 1 or to subtract some number, we would translate down 1 unit. So one way of generalizing this is f of x plus k, where k is just some constant, we will go up k units. And that's the basics of translation, at least translation up or translation down. In future videos, we'll talk about translating to the left or right and things like squashing and stretching.